The catching position and the Baseball Hall of Fame. Only 19 of the 343 inductees are catchers. So much goes into just being the unofficial captain of the diamond.
Second base!
It can make things complicated when it comes time for writers to decide who to cast their votes for. Joe Mauer is a great recent example. The Minnesota hero had an excellent career, but as voting season started in late 2023, not many outside of the Twin Cities were thinking he was a sure thing to get in, let alone a first ballot inductee. But depending on when you're watching this, Mauer has either made that catcher inductee number a nice round 20 or will in the years ahead.
You did want to take me to the Hall of Fame!
But what if I told you that Mauer's recent surge to Cooperstown has made me think of one man in particular, Buster Posey. Because when you compare Posey to Mauer, you've actually got some strong similarities. But that's not the full story, because Posey's numbers might actually line up better with one catcher who isn't in the Hall, but probably should be. Buckle up, baseball fans, because we've got to head back in time, not to relive and compare a few stud catchers, but to try and answer the question, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, is Buster Posey going to be in or out? Welcome to Good Vibes Baseball. Please consider subscribing if you haven't. I do appreciate you either way. Now let's get into some good vibes, shall we? For us college baseball fans, it feels like Buster Posey was a stud for forever. First with Florida State, then with the Giants. But was his career really worthy of Cooperstown? Well, just like anything involving the BWAA, it's complicated.
Having somebody making wild decisions that make no sense, that benefits nobody.
We've got to tackle this from different angles.
Yes, science!
So starting with his career numbers, one thing no one can argue about, he could rake. Posey was a career .302 hitter, good for 20th in the Giants' long history. Of his 1,500 career hits, 293 of those were doubles and 158 were bombs to go along with 729 runs batted in, as a catcher. And if that number doesn't really rev your engines, keep in mind, what Mike Piazza did is not normal for catchers. Dude was a freak. But this culminated in a career line of .372, .460, and .831 OBP, slug, and OPS respectively for Posey. His adjusted OPS plus of 129 is good for a tie for 190th all-time and the exact same as Hall of Fame catcher Mickey Cochran. His career WRC plus was also 129, good for 27th all-time in Giants history. Not bad at all. But unless you're Piazza,
mucho home run.
A catcher's true value can't be measured with just the usual offensive stats. Defense and overall value are both huge parts of the puzzle. Luckily for Posey, he actually shines in both. His career fielding percentage of .995 as a catcher is good for a tie for 9th all-time, and his total zone runs as a catcher of 77 is good for 8th all-time. And from a value perspective, he put up an excellent 9.8 defensive B-WAR, which is good for 10th all-time in Giants history. And speaking of WAR,
Well, hello, beautiful.
his career B-WAR of 44.8 puts him 7th in all of Giants history. He also put up a career F-WAR of 57.6, which ranks him 5th all-time in Giants history, just a little behind the great Willie McCovey. He also had a very strong peak to his career. He had a string of 6 straight seasons with a B-WAR of at least 4, including that insane 2012 season of 7.6. But we'll get to that. Posey was a beast, but he also had some pretty serious hardware to accompany those numbers.
These are my awards, Mother. From Army.
He was a 7-time All-Star and 5-time Silver Slugger Award winner. He won 1 Gold Glove in 2016, which actually broke Yadier Molina's 7-year Gold Glove streak for NL catchers. the 2010 NL Rookie of the Year, and the 2012 batting title to go along with the 2012 Comeback Player of the Year award, the 2012 Hank Aaron award, and the 2012 MVP award. I think it's safe to say 2012 was Buster's year. He won that Comeback Player of the Year award twice actually too, after he received the award in 2021 as well. And since this is the Baseball Hall of Fame we're talking about, he did win the Golden Spikes Award, along with now having the College Baseball Top Catcher Award named after him. Oh yeah, he also won 3 World Series rings. In fact, his combo of 3 rings, a Rookie of the Year, and MVP is something only one other player in baseball history has done. The other, Pete Rose. And that's on top of being on the receiving end of 1 perfect game, which we actually just did a video featuring that game, please go check it out if you haven't, and 2 other no-hitters. He actually caught the last out of a third no-no too, but started the game at first base. But yeah, I think his award resume speaks for itself, just like his numbers. Buster Posey had an excellent career, but is it really Hall of Fame worthy? Well, I think the favorable light voters have shown to one catcher in 2024 actually bodes quite well for Posey down the line. Let's talk about Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer might be my all-time favorite player. If there was one player I wanted on the Rockies more than anyone else, it was Joe. The homegrown Minnesota hero actually almost was a Seminole just like Posey, but he turned down football for the Diamond and wound up being one of the sweetest swinging catchers in baseball history.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin a quarter mile.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
But even I, the Mauer superfan, was a little concerned voters wouldn't feel like he belonged in the Hall. Did he do enough? So you can imagine my delight as we see voters coming through for him on his first ballot. He looks to be bound for Cooperstown, maybe even by the time you are seeing this. And you know what? When you look at Posey and Mauer, their careers actually have some nice similarities that actually might even favor Buster in certain ways. Looking at Mauer's traditional stats, we see that he also could flat out rake. Mauer was a career .306 hitter, good for a tie for 12th in Twins history. Of his 2,123 career hits, 428 of those were doubles and 143 were bombs to go along with 923 career runs batted in. He posted a career OBP, slug, and OPS line of 388, 439, and 827 respectively, culminating with a career adjusted OPS plus of 124 and a WRC plus of 123. That WRC plus number is good for 20th in Twins history.
Hot damn!
But both the adjusted OPS plus and WRC plus numbers are worse than Posey's. Mauer does have a big edge in hits and doubles, but their batting averages and their OBP, slug, OPS lines are almost identical. Mauer did spend the second half of his career at first base. We'll come back to that. But again, as with any catcher not named Piazza, traditional stats, they don't tell us the full story. Thinking back, I remember Joe Mauer as an excellent defensive backstop, and for his size, shucks, he might have been the best in the league in my mind. His fielding percentage as a catcher actually does agree with that, coming in at a .995 clip, which is the same as Posey and good for 9th all time. But his total zone runs as a catcher comes in at just 40, as opposed to Posey's 77. But the real surprise to me was Mauer's defensive B-WAR, just 3.0 to Posey's 9.8 in their careers.
What?
And that's with Posey also playing first base periodically. But speaking of WAR, those extra hits and doubles, they did help contribute to an excellent 55.2 B-WAR and 53 F-WAR, both good for 3rd all time in Twins history. Remind me of Posey's F-WAR again? Oh yeah, 57.6.
You son of a gun.
And if we're going to mention Posey's peak, it's worth calling out that Mauer did have a stretch of 6 seasons where 4 of them he posted a B-WAR of at least 5.5, including his 7.7 B-WAR season of 2009, where he happened to win the MVP award. But speaking of the hardware, I think Posey might actually have the edge. Mauer did win one MVP like Posey, but was a 6-time All-Star compared to Posey's 7. Mauer did win 3 Gold Gloves, but we already proved that the numbers favored Posey's defense. Mauer did win 5 Silver Sluggers. So did Posey. Mauer does beat Posey in batting titles 3-1, but overall, Posey has more hardware. Mauer also doesn't have a ring. Posey has 3.
Which, as we all know, is completely ridiculous.
And he played a lot more first base than Posey, on top of being able to DH on occasion. So if Mauer gets in, shouldn't Buster?
That makes sense to me.
But there's one player who Buster lines up with better from a B-War perspective that I think could hurt Buster's chances at the Hall. Time to talk about Yankees legend, Thurman Munson. I don't think I could make a video about catchers and the Hall of Fame and leave Thurman Munson out. No pun intended.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It also just so happens his B-War lines up beautifully with Posey's. 46.1 for Munson to 44.8 for Posey. So how can voters justify voting for Posey if they didn't vote for Munson? Well, it's not just about the B-Wars. Munson could also rake, as he hit .292 for his career with 1,558 career hits, just 58 more than Posey. He hit 229 doubles, 113 bombs, with 701 career runs batted in to partner with an OBP slug OPS line of 346, 410, and 756 respectively. Posey was better in each category. Munson's adjusted OPS plus and WRC plus of 116 each also are worse than Posey's. And that's just the traditional stats. From a defensive perspective, Munson posted a career fielding percentage of just .982. He did have a career defensive B-War of 11.9 though. Thurman Munson, defensive wizard. But does that 2-win advantage for Munson in this one area make up for the other numbers? The other big thing to mention is the difference in F-Wars. 57.6 for Posey to just 40.9 for Munson is tough to look past. But Munson does stack up nicely from an awards perspective. Munson also won the Rookie of the Year award, an MVP award, and also was a 7-time All-Star, all just like Posey. He did only win 2 World Series rings though. But he did win 3 Gold Gloves, 2 more than Posey. He posted a B-War of at least 3 in 9 straight seasons. It probably would have been 10 straight at least if he doesn't tragically pass away in a plane crash before the end of the 1979 season. He never had a dip in production. Thurman Munson belongs in the Hall. But looking at Posey's case objectively, why might he not get in? The Baseball Hall of Fame inspires debate, in part because there is not a set criteria that guarantees induction. Just ask Barry Bonds. This means that a lot of really great players might not get in, even on pure merit. Joe Mauer is Twins royalty, same with Buster and San Fran. They are heroes to folks, but are they truly Hall of Famers? Well, injuries unfortunately played a pretty big role in both of their careers. Mauer literally had to switch to first base halfway through his career due to concussion issues. Voters don't seem to mind though.
Oh, yeah. Those people. Those guys did a pretty good job.
Buster lost a year to injury and a year to COVID, but he never made the permanent switch to first base. In fact, the most he ever played at first base in a season? 42 games. That's not a valid reason to keep him out of the Hall. But if both never get hurt, this isn't even a discussion. That ties into our second and maybe most valid reason why Posey might not garner a vote. He just doesn't have enough.
Ridiculous.
None of these 3 played in 2,000 games. He and Munson have 600 less hits and almost 200 less runs batted in than Mauer does, and neither hit the 2,000 career hit mark either. Mauer also has a much higher B-War, but Posey doesn't have a single character concern. He was a poster child for a Giants dynasty that won 3 World Series rings. And he did everything right, except play longer? So what's the verdict?
I hate riddles and other such nonsense. I want that on the record.
Well, honestly, I feel like all three of these men deserve a place in Cooperstown. But by comparing the three, by the numbers, we see Maurer has a slight edge. But Posey never had to switch to first permanently. Maurer also didn't win 3 World Series rings. Posey only won the 1 Gold Glove, but he was more valuable by the numbers defensively. They both won MVPs. Posey and Munson each won MVPs and Rookie of the Year awards. The similarities are absolutely present. Who cares if they didn't play in 2,000 games? They were catchers. So maybe voters whiffed by leaving Munson out. But if Joe Maurer is going to be catcher number 20 inducted into Cooperstown, it feels like Buster? Well, shouldn't he be a no-brainer too? But what do you think? Is Buster Posey a Hall of Famer? Let me know down below. But thanks so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't. I do appreciate you either way. But until next time, baseball fans, cheers!